We're reading about the resurrection today. Matthew 28, follow along at home. Matthew 28, verses 1 and 2. Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it.
No. There was no angel. It was one man. See, look, right here.
Where?
Mark 16, 4 through 5, right? When they looked and they saw that the stone was rolled away, for it was very great. And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were affrighted.
I don't know what Bible you guys are reading out of, but I'm looking right here in Luke chapter 24, verses 1 through 4. On the first day of the week at early dawn, they went to the tomb, and they found the tomb empty. The stone had already been rolled away. So they didn't watch the stone get rolled away. There was no earthquake. The stone was already rolled away. They went in. They did not find the body of Jesus. And then there also weren't angels. They went in, and they were perplexed, and then suddenly two men appeared behind them, dressed in dazzling apparel.
No, blasphemer. No, in John, the great apostle, there's one woman, two men, and Jesus himself there. See, here we are, John 20, 11 through 15. But Mary stood without at the sepulchre weeping, and as she wept, she stooped down and looked into the sepulchre, and seeth two angels in white, sitting, the one at the head, the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus had lain. And they say unto her, Woman, why weepest thou? She saith unto them, Because they have taken away my Lord, and I know not where they have laid him. And when she had thus said, she turned herself back, and saw Jesus standing, and knew not that it was Jesus. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, why weepest thou? Whom seekest thou? She, supposing him to be the gardener, said unto him, Sir, if you have borne him hence, tell me where you hast laid him, and I will take him away. So I don't know what Bible you guys are reading, but you're wrong.
Well, in Mark, they ran off. They didn't tell anybody.
No, they didn't. Clearly, they didn't run off. You got Mary Magdalene right here talking to Jesus, although she didn't know it.
But it says here...
What? There's more?
Yeah, well, here in Luke, it says that he's already risen and stuff like that. So
No. In John, he hadn't risen he hadn't ascended at this point, so you're still wrong.
What?
He doesn't ascend until after he sees the apostles.
Isn't this the most important story in the Christian mythology?
Absolutely.
Did anyone proofread this?
No.
Why don't these witnesses have the same account of what happened?
Maybe it's so important, and that's why they put 4 different versions of it in there, because it's so important it gets written 4 times.
That's not how anything works. All right, look, if you out there have an explanation for all these contradictions and you want to reach an audience of thousands of non-believers, go ahead and call in, because AXP is about to start. Welcome, everybody. Today is August 27th, 2023. My name's Johnny P., and joining me here today is JMike and Forest Valkai.
Hello.
And we are post-Bat Cruise weekend. All right? We've got a whole audience of people here. Mm-hmm. If they want to show the camera, if they're interested. Hey! We got... Pan around, not on the empty seats, but on everybody else who's here. Jeepers,
it's rolling. We say that's
creepers.
Rolling.
We're live from the Free Thought Library in front of a live studio audience. We came back from the Bat Cruise. We had the Bat Cruise. Mm-hmm. We had an after party.
Yep.
That got moved multiple times. Some of the people couldn't make it. Met some fantastic people yesterday from all around the country. Philadelphia, Florida. We got folks from Minnesota. We got folks from even local here, from San Antonio, and others from around the way. And we were so glad we had a lot of fun. And we're here today in the studio with some of them and those who aren't here. Next year we hope to have you here. everyone, join us next time. Come here for the Bat Cruise, come here for the show, and join us for the Atheist Experience, which is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Last week, before we take any calls, we had share your experience, as we always do, and we had a question. Last week we asked, make a church sign with a double entendre. And here are our top 3 answers. Number 3, Sky Daddy, church sign. The ultimate position is on your knees. Suggestive, isn't it? Number 2, N-based Ace says, actual Catholic church sign in my town, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you. Acts 1:8.
Harsh trade.
I feel like that guy from the Family Feud.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then number 1 choice, Elena Aldine, church sign, take hold of the sword of God and he will fill you to overflowing. It's a family-friendly show, so we won't go any further than that. But we've got a new prompt this week. What is the best comeback for, quote, the fool says in his heart that there is no God? So let's start with JMike. What do you got?
Let's go with Forest, because I don't think the mic's that good.
All right.
Mine is serious. If anybody says that to me, my response is always, okay, the fool says in his heart that there is a God, and now we've both said nothing. Where do we go from here?
So that's literally what I was going to say. I was just going to do the negation of that.
Yeah.
So,
If you change one word and it completely means the same amount of nothing, what are you actually saying?
Yeah. And my response is, cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Coolio.
yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and take our first call. Forrest, what do you want to do for us?
I'm down with that. So first off, we've got Evan, pronouns he, him, from Virginia, wants to discuss truth, epistemology, I don't know why I said that so weird, and the nature of
I was
evidence.
thinking of epidemiology.
It's the day after the back cruise.
Do you need EpiPen?
Yes. He's going to talk about epigenetics and truth. Welcome to the show, Evan. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're awesome,
Good.
man.
Great.
Great. Good to hear it. Yeah, I actually said epistemology, not epigenetics. Might have.
Oh, no, you did. I just can't read.
Yeah.
The problem isn't with you. The problem is that I'm very dumb. Please tell us what you want to talk about today.
Hey, no, you're all good. Hey, I'm a big fan of the show. I've been watching for several years. I am a theist. I'm a Christian. I've seen a couple of debates with Delahunty, and a lot of them end basically with two people disagreeing on the definition of words, whether it's colloquial or not. Like, I just wanted to know from you guys' perspective, how do you know if something you believe is true?
How do I? Well, so for me, it's going to depend on what you're talking about with knowledge. So, like, for me, I want to raise the probability that the proposition is true, and so I'm kind of skeptical on the success of deductive arguments in philosophy. Like, I really don't. I want them to work, right? I have this kind of like, I have certain arguments that I've constructed that I think are true, that lead to positions that, are probably favorable in atheism, whether it's some type of Platonism and things like that, that I've had positions for. But I always think that the other person I'd be talking to, there's something in the background there that, on their metaphysics, that it kind of instructs them to deny one of the premises of my argument. And similarly, when they give me an argument, there's kind of something going on in the background with my view that kind of instructs me to deny a certain premise. And so I think that the best type of project for that is kind of this comparison of looking at the worldviews and their virtues. So if you're talking about like on the worldview kind of picture or like the metaphysics picture or those kind of things, that to me is the best route of doing that. But I mean, I'm okay with inductive assessments and deduction, obviously. When it comes to the worldview pictures, I'm skeptical that I'm going to convince the other person. And it seems better just to do this kind of trade-off on simplicity and explanatory power. That's the thing that I think I prefer the most, kind of like the Graham Oppy kind of style.
Yeah, I'm not a philosopher. I'm a scientist. So like, for me, I'm just going to say the word evidence. I need to have a good reason to believe something in order to believe that it's true. And I always understand that, my current model of the universe could be wrong. It's the same way that, we have a saying in science, every model is wrong, every theory is wrong, but some of them are useful. And the way to explain that to people who aren't familiar with science is to simply say that every map is also wrong. The Earth is what the Earth looks like. The best possible satellite image map is not correct because you're projecting a 3D image onto a 2D space. You can see it. Things are changing on the Earth all the time. People are moving around. People are driving cars. People are digging holes. Like, things are changing all the time that aren't going to be reflected in real time on that map. The map is always going to be wrong, but you can have a better and better and better map. But at the end of the day, the Earth is what the Earth looks like. And it's the same thing in science. We're constantly trying to prove ourselves wrong. You never accept a hypothesis. You fail to reject a hypothesis. So we're constantly looking for new ways to improve our models and our theories and understand more about the universe. But at the end of the day, reality is what reality looks like. So I'm moving forward with my best understanding of the universe based on the best evidence that I have. And if there ever comes a time where I think about something that I think I know, and I realize that I don't have a good reason to know it, that I don't actually have a good reason to believe it, that I don't actually know it as well as I thought, that I don't have any evidence for it, I'm either going to stop believing that thing, or I'm going to go out and look for that evidence until I can to try to figure out what I actually should be believing. That's what I would say. And someone listening to that would absolutely take the philosophical route and start saying, but how do you know that you know things? And how do you know you're not a brain in a jar?
Well, yeah, I just deny the KK principle. But.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, there's so many ways to go about it.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's if it works in my life, if it actually functions, if I relied upon it in the past, and I have evidence to establish that such a particular proposition is true, and I've relied upon it regularly. But if I come in, like, for example, you got this idea that the sun, the Earth revolves or revolves around the sun.
You want to try again?
Yeah. No, I don't. It appears that that the Earth goes around the sun, or the sun goes around the Earth, but it doesn't, because we have information, and there's certain aspects about it that just don't make any sense when we look at the entire model. And there's some things that don't work with that particular model. You have to change your worldview. But if it functions for me. For those things that I don't have what I think are sufficient reasons to believe, I just withhold my opinion on it. And I don't try to shoehorn a claim into my life. I'm not sure. It just seems to function. We talk about this brain in a vat thing all the time. How about this? Let's all agree that according to the potential simulation that we live in, these particular facts are true. If you don't want to acknowledge that we all have a shared actual reality that we exist in, then say the perceived reality that we exist in has these facts as true, and we can test it and we can prove it. It doesn't prove that we're not brains in a vat, but it does tell us something about the simulated reality that we exist in.
So,
but,
Evan,
yeah.
what do you think on, because we get different kind of answers. One would just particular propositions. The case that I'm saying is more like the overall worldview, the set of sentences or propositions that you're committed to. What do you think about those responses?
What is thy response?
Super elaborate, super intuitive. I really appreciate that. I'm resonating a lot with what you guys are saying. That's kind of like in my own personal endeavors trying to discover the truth. I'm kind of in this position where I personally believe in objective truth. And so what I mean by that, because I know, again, it's really around the definitions of words. That's where stuff starts to get like muddy. And I would say I believe in objective truth, meaning there are things in our shared reality that are true for everyone, regardless of their personal opinions. And trying to discern and separate your personal opinion versus objective reality can be difficult, but I think there is a distinction between the two.
Yeah, of course.
And when I say something is true, I mean it's true for everyone, regardless of their opinion.
Yeah, whether they care about it or yeah.
Can you give us an example? Give us an example of one of these truths.
Well, I like to say mathematics because some people would say we invented them. I'm from the side that likes to think we kind of discovered mathematics because it's a structured system within the universe. I'm not going to say within our material reality, but it's a structured system within at least our thoughts that we can tap into, and we always get the same result every time. It's never wrong. So if I said 2 + 2 is 4 and I went to Mars, it would still be 4. If I was in Kansas, it would still be 4. If I was in,
But what about the stuff we can get wrong though? Like, so, like you said, if you're a Christian, right? You're a Christian theist, presumably?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so like because like I have a specific view on Jesus, and if me and you had this dispute, like I think he's an apocalyptic preacher that, didn't succeed at his proclamation in Mark 9:1, and you disagree with that, we're going to have to look on a historical level, right? And so I'm wondering, like, if that's true, right? Me and you are going to agree there's a fact of the matter between our dispute. Maybe both of us are wrong. There's a different view of Jesus. I don't know. But assuming that one of us is right, how would we go about that with you? Like, if I say, I say the claim is Jesus is a failed apocalyptic preacher, and you don't think that, what do you appeal to independent to show me that that claim is true, that, Jesus is not that failed apocalyptic preacher that actually rose from the dead?
Yeah, I think you can take a look at the philosophy, the history, stuff like that, and that can lead you pretty far. But I think also, and I'd be happy to talk about this another time, it'd be a whole separate conversation. But because of the fact that God doesn't reveal himself in such an obscure way that every person could just know his existence so simply, I think life is about the journey and about the process of discovering God and sanctification and things of that sort. So I would say, and you guys might not like it, but I think everyone relies on it to some degree. I would say the personal testimony, my personal experience in reality, I experience a non-corporeal reality where I think there's things that, like maybe a dimension that's intertwined with ours that you can access. And I think you can't demonstrate it.
I'm not really following. I'm sorry to cut you off, Evan, but I'm not really following you because, like, for example, if you were like, JMike, convince me that Jesus was an apocalyptic preacher or something, I would cite.
Oh, you said wasn't, or was?
Well, whatever your view is, yeah. Or like it could be showing me that my view is false or your view, because like I would give you something specific, like, well, historians have these self-imposed criteria like dissimilarity or independent attestation, right? Contextual credibility, and I would use those things as a filter with all the historical evidence that we have, and out the other end comes what's most probable is that Jesus was this apocalyptic preacher that thought the end of the world was coming in his generation and was wrong about that. And I would cite those external things, but the response you gave me was kind of like these generic, like philosophy, history, stuff like that. I'm kind of wondering specifically, so we can put this to test on in virtue of what that's true, or in virtue of what that my position's false, because I can give you the reasons why I think the probability is raised.
Great. Okay. Thank you for bringing that up, that point. I see what you're talking about now. So I have a question to ask, sort of the crux of my position to get to the answer of what you just asked. Mm-hmm. So when I asked at the beginning, how do you know something's true? My follow-up question would be, how do you know if something is evidence? And I'll let you guys think about that for a second, but I'd like to propose a quick scenario really quickly. So,
I don't mind doing that. I just kind of curious on your answer, and then we can, if Forrest and Johnny want to answer that as well with you, I'm happy to do that. Just so that we don't skip around. The question's going to be...
I would...
Yeah, the question's going to be like, what...
Go ahead.
Yeah, because like I gave reasons on why I think that I can give multiple reasons, right? Like the changes in Luke, where the kingdom of God becomes spiritual, Luke 17:20-21, or when Jesus is talking to the high priest, he no longer tells the high priest that you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds like he does in Mark. Point being is that you can look at Mark and see an apocalyptic message, and you can see the writers of Luke later changing this such that it spiritualizes the kingdom of God, and then it eventually just does away with that, and it's just accepting Jesus in your heart. Now, I could give all the reasons why I think that proposition's true, what raises the probability, and so what I'm kind of asking you is to show me why. You don't have to show me that I'm wrong, but show me that Jesus is who you think he is in virtue of some evidence, right?
Right, and then Evan, real quick.
Yes.
When you ask somebody a question generally in life, and they respond by asking you a question, that's pretty suspicious, isn't it? And I'm not saying that you're trying to be manipulative or in any way, but
no.
If I'm going to a car dealership and I want to ask some questions about the horsepower, fuel efficiency, capacity, and they say, "Well, let me ask you a question," you're going to be like, "Okay, this person's trying to sell me something." So rather than turning it back on us and asking us a question about our epistemology and all that jazz, just answer Mike's question.
Yeah, and if it's clarificatory, I don't mind that. But if it's a separate question, then
go right ahead.
Yeah. So
no, go right ahead.
Yeah. So the question is So the question is in virtue of what is the story that you have about Jesus true, right? Because I have a story about Jesus that I can give evidence that I think raises the probability. But I want to see what your view is. I'm happy to go into this view, but I gave a little taste of it, so I'm asking a little taste. What would you appeal to show
Let's hear it.
us that Jesus rose from the dead or was who he says he is?
So I think we're looking. I'll give you a direct answer right now. I think the Gospels, and give me 5 seconds to explain. So I think there you can put some like. I need to explain what I'm saying, but I would say the Gospels are reliable.
Well, hold on. I'm sorry. I have to. I'm also using the Gospels, right? So the evidence,
yes.
appealing to the Gospels is the thing that I'm using as well.
Okay.
I'm using Mark 9:1. I'm using Luke.
Yeah, hold on, give me a second.
Yep.
You are going through it and going, what can I find wrong with this or contradictory or philosophically not meeting my personal standards of what I deem as evidence or what I deem as contradictory?
I don't think that's what I did.
Getting at.
Well, rather than talking about JMike's approach, go ahead and give us the evidence from the Gospels.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say the accounts of the Gospels, and we're going to sit here and debate on whether it's actually evidence or not. And what I'm saying is,
Did you see the beginning of the show?
example of what I'm talking.
Hang on. Wait. Did you see the beginning of the show is great, but yeah, go ahead and give us an example from the Gospels.
Yes. No, give me 5 seconds to explain my
Sure, that's
epistemology.
my bad. Yeah,
Okay,
go
let's
ahead.
get the clock up. Let's go ahead and get the clock up
Yeah, good.
right now. And you're going to get 1 minute.
Go ahead.
Okay? Can I get the clock
Perfect.
from
Perfect.
from crew?
Well,
Uninterrupted,
I would
1
ask
minute.
you, like a question throughout this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, right now, started?
Yep, 1 minute.
Proceed.
Okay. I was going to ask you a question and then have a follow-up answer to what your answer was.
You're not selling us a car. Go ahead and give us your evidence from the gospel.
Oh, okay, hold on. We're disagreeing about what the word evidence is, and you're not letting me pound this down.
I'll give you a definition. Evidence is that which
Okay.
is information that which makes a claim more likely than not. Okay, that's like a legal definition. So that's a definition we're working with. So go ahead.
Makes a claim more likely than not.
Or proposition. Yeah.
Okay.
Or a proposition, yeah.
But okay, so okay, give me 1 minute interrupted. I'll explain this.
Cool.
If I'm sitting in a room and it's just me by myself, and there's an apple on a table, and I go, "There's an apple on a table," and no one is there around to observe it at all. Is there actually an apple on a table? Hold on, I don't want to get too philosophical. You interject a second person into that room, and I say, "There's an apple on the table," and they say, "No, there's not." And I'm going, wait a minute, there's actually an apple. I'm going to pick it up and throw it at your head. And they go, no, that's not even there. And I throw it and hit them in the head. And they go, ow. What it seems like is the people who are skeptics of the Bible are saying there's not an apple there. But what we want people to say is there's an apple there. I just don't trust that it's a real apple. But you guys are saying there's not even any evidence at all. It's like, well, why is there a book in my hand? Like, why is there physical material that has been obviously kept throughout time, and people physically wrote it on pages? There's actual like evidence, which is what I'm saying, is like there's a material object that we're talking about and we're looking at. But it seems like atheists or skeptics.
The word Jesus was never mentioned in that entire minute.
Yeah, that was the
not
whole
one
minute.
time did you mention Jesus, and all you did was talk about you skeptics. You have fucked up when you've already when your reason why you believe is you. That doesn't make any sense.
It's so weird that you when you were talking about JMike reading the Bible, you said, well, you're looking for problems. That's called a critical reading. You're supposed to do that when you want to know whether or not you should believe something. That's a good thing to do. And then your whole description here, what if the people disagreed about what an apple is? What if the other person spoke Spanish and they're like, that's not an apple, that's a manzana. I don't know what you're talking about. There's the freaking minute timer. But it's just like this.
Go.
Yeah, I just, man, I don't know, man. You haven't said anything that's actually evidence yet. You've just said, we disagree on what evidence is. No, we don't. Then you said, well, you're reading the Bible wrong. No, we're not. And then you said, well, we could disagree on what words mean. Yeah, sure.
Hey,
but why do you believe what you believe is the question. That was all we want to know. Why do you believe what you believe?
Sometimes people will call in and say, "Oh, there's prophecies, and there's the feet of clay, and there's the legs of iron, and there's something out of gold," and they're like, "Okay, well that's crap." And then they'll give us, "Well, there's examples. Where do you get your morality from? Objective."
Yeah,
that's something at least. It's garbage, but it's something.
What about the apples?
What about them apples, though? Go ahead and give us an example from the Bible, and we'll tell you whether we accept it as evidence, whether it's evidence or not, or bad evidence, or great evidence. So go ahead and do it. I gave you 5 seconds. We gave you a minute.
That's the crux of what I'm saying. You said you have to accept it as evidence. That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
All right, we're gonna start the clock again for you for a minute.
Okay.
I'm gonna make
That'll be the last minute, I hope.
I'm gonna make a prediction that
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get any evidence.
Give us your best best, what you consider evidence. I'd like it to be specific so we can respond specifically, okay? Now we've got that clock up.
Yep.
Give it to me, crew. Give me that clock.
And
Evan,
hey.
there, go. Go.
Okay. In the Gospels of the Bible, obviously, written down, it claims that a man, Jesus Christ, rose and died and came back and essentially broke the laws of physics. And obviously that revelation was written down and has been passed down for thousands of years. I am to believe that claim because of the fact that the non-corporeal reality I experience tells me that there's a being or a God. Same with the morality argument, the cosmological argument, the theological argument. Those all compiled together tell me that there's a non-physical universe, a creator of the universe. And the best explanation that I have found through my personal investigation has been through the Bible and the fact that Jesus Christ rose, rose again, to demonstrate and prove that Yahweh, or the God of the Bible, was actually real and existed in our reality.
I found exactly 10 things wrong with what you just said. 10 major issues. Lord, I am not going to be able to remember them. But let's just start with the very last one. Let's say for a second that you actually... Okay, so you started with that Jesus died and rose again. How do you know? Because at the beginning of the show, we read out of the Bible, and there's several different conflicting stories about how that happened. So which one is real? They can't all be real, but they can all be fake. Also, you named all these different arguments, the teleological and the ontological and all these, the cosmological arguments for God, all of which suck. By the way, we can go through them if you want, but I don't think we have time. We have a lot of other callers on the line. But then you said that that's why you know that Jesus Christ was a real dude existing in the real reality. No, even if you could prove that he rose from the dead, that doesn't do anything for all the other claims. That doesn't claim that he turned water into wine. That doesn't prove that he walked on water. That doesn't prove that he was the Son of God. That doesn't prove that there is a God. Just because somebody got up after getting down, that doesn't mean anything. We do that in hospitals all the time. Yeah. That's not defying the laws of physics. So, like, dude, I don't know, man. Everything you just said was just regurgitating the Christian religion. I believe it because I read a book that says I should believe it, and so I believe it. That's not an argument. That's not evidence.
Yeah, should we move on from here?
Let's let them finish up.
Yeah, I want to just say one thing on this, because look, what you did is you gave the story, the claims that you were asking the additional question of why do you think that those things are true. So when you just list out the gospel, what the story tells, that's great. How do you know that the red lettering actually goes back to Jesus? Are you using a criterion of dissimilarity? Because, and you can just throw in Google criterion of dissimilarity, and you'll see that it's used on sayings of Jesus to decipher whether it's likely to come from Jesus, or whether it's likely that, or an oral tradition, the earliest oral traditions, or if it's a later put on the lips of Jesus, or an additional change from some oral tradition because of theological implications. So when I cite the reasons why I believe some view on that, I'm going to look at the actual historical facts, like the Jews being oppressed by the Babylonians, the Ptolemies, and how this creates this. Hold on.
How do you know that's a historical fact?
Because we have abductive methods.
You said historical.
Hold on. Let me finish.
What?
Because we have. Do you know what abduction is?
What? No, say it again.
Yeah, we have abductive methodologies that historians use that are extremely reliable. It's not.
And you just put faith into that that's real. And
No. So no. There's no faith. It's self-imposed. You could impose whatever criteria you want. If it holds up to scrutiny and it's reliable, it's a really good sign, right? That's why if you just make up stuff and it doesn't pan out very well, probably not a good criteria to use. Stuff that continuously shows reliability, continuously raises the probability that's likely to be true, is something that you should do. All you gave us was some book says a thing, which I agree. Books say things. I'm asking for the additional support. What is justificatory for the propositions being true? You didn't do any of that. You failed. You flunked. Next time, if you want to call in, come in with this. This stuff happened in the Bible, and it's true because, and then go. Don't just repeat that stuff before. It's true because, and then tell us why.
And Evan, if we can just wrap up on one last thing before we get out of here. I heard the last thing that you just said tells me a lot about where you're coming from. Mike was talking about, we have actual evidence for this. We have a reason to believe this thing. We have records, historical records. We have ways to go check and fact check what we do. I study biology for a living, so like my whole business is having several different reasons to believe everything that I believe, because if I didn't have all those reasons, it would sound insane. And your answer to that immediately was, so you just have faith in those things. No, that's the opposite of what was just described to you. Faith is believing in something when you have no good reason to believe in it, when you don't have evidence, but you decide to believe in it anyway. And that is precisely what we were speaking out against. It's not just believing because you're told to believe. It's looking for a good reason. And the fact that that was a weird, difficult thing for you tells me a lot about what you need to learn first before you call us back next time.
Right. And we're going to let you go with that. So I do appreciate you calling it. We don't hate you. We're just not convinced. So
I'm sick of the being pulled down to the level of like, that's faith. Like all you're doing is desperately trying to pull me to your really bad epistemic level.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? We have an exciting new way for you to support the ACA. Check out this video.
Have you ever wanted to make a permanent impact on the atheist community of Austin? Help support our space for free thought by buying a custom engraved brick to be laid on the building grounds to help raise funds for improvements. Our building has stood as a beacon for years, bringing people together. But 3 years of emptiness due to the pandemic have taken a toll, leaving it in disrepair. Help us restore this hub of connection and support by buying a brick. Moses had his stone tablets, but we're doing our own version. Join our brick fundraiser and let your engraved messages stand the test of time, minus commandments. Visit tiny.cc/ACA bricks for more information.
All right.
That was a ton of fun.
Bricks.
Yeah. Bricks.
So
Buy bricks, y'all.
Yeah, bricks. You can do that. You can become a channel member for as little as 99 cents a month. Click the join button below the video. This will give you access to special chat emojis. And you can send a super chat. Mm-hmm. Why don't we do a super chat?
Let's do it. We got one from the lovely Jimmie Jr. $4.99. Thank you so much. Great job, guys. Also, Yahweh is the god of rain in ancient Mesopotamia. I feel like more people need to know that. Shrug.
I don't know that. That's crazy. I'll check that later. There's more above this as well.
Is there? Oh, can you roll?
You cannot. You have to move.
Yeah,
son of a gun.
I learned that last
We learned
time.
this on Talkie.
Is this one? Is this one here?
Yeah, keep going up.
Keep going.
It'll say, nope. Little.
There we go.
Little
One more.
Right, below that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Kelly Laughlin again. For $5, we got Scott Dickey told me to tell you hello.
Hello, Scott Dickey.
Hello, Scott Dickey.
And thank you, Kelly. And this one too.
And then we got Robin Webster for $5 as well. Thank you so much. Awesome panel of hosts. Heard the bats came out. Wish I could have been there. Thanks for being here with us. Yeah, I walked out and didn't realize it was happening now. I looked up. I was like, oh, okay, it's happening right now.
The bats emerged in abundance. It was fantastic.
Yeah, let me tell you, I've ran that river many, many times, and I've never seen the bats more multitudinous than that.
That should, it's
They're trying to show
if that's
off
not
the
a word, that
forest.
should be a word. That's great.
Well, I'm with Mike, so I got to use the big words.
Right. You got one more there as well.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Oh, yeah, and we got Mr. D Madness for $5. I hate them. Religion is the flat tire that impedes the vehicle of progress. That is science.
Agree on the second part, but
Yeah, I don't like.
Don't be hateful. I know it's probably a figure of speech.
I know what you're feeling.
Yeah, it's probably a figure of speech, but there's way too many people that call in that are actually vitriolic, and that's not what we're going for. So no shame and no hate, no shade.
Yeah.
No hate. Religious people are not inherently stupid. They're not mentally. None of that.
Oh my God, I get that all the time. People call in, they're like, "Oh, religion's a mental illness." I'm like, bro, I will fight you.
The content's very easy to address. So
We've had arguments right here on the show about that, and I do not like. Okay, so let's take our next call.
Sure. So this is probably going to be a short one, but we've got an old favorite. We've got Amanuel, pronouns he, him, from right here in Texas, wants to argue that the Holy Scriptures are consistent. Apparently did not listen to the beginning of the show, and especially says that the Old and the New Testament go well together. Emmanuel, welcome back to the Atheist Experience. How are you today?
How are you guys?
Hey.
Never had a bad day, dude.
Didn't expect to see JMike. I thought he lives in Georgia, but apparently
I flew out.
in Texas.
Yeah, I flew out.
Oh,
Flapped his arms real hard. He got
Yep.
here, yeah.
It
Expect
took
the
a while.
unexpected, yeah. Go ahead.
So I got these guns.
So-
you can tell.
I walked all the way from
I
Tulsa.
think-
It was a bad time.
So you say the Holy Scriptures are consistent, and the Old Testament and the New Testament go well together, like peanut butter and jelly. Go ahead and give us That's a claim. Now support it.
What I think is if there's a person who has Jewish beliefs, I think the New Testament goes well when you look at like the doctrines that are presented in the New Testament writings. I understand that there's like a narrational contradictions in the New Testament, as you have read. For example, you see in the Gospels that the resurrection story is very different. One writer writing a different story than the different writer. For example, you can see that in the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of Matthew was a different resurrection story. But it doesn't change the doctrine, which is the basic doctrine that there is one God.
Yeah, I actually made that joke before the show started, that somebody was going to call in and say that. So thank you for fulfilling the prophecy. But yeah, I wish you could have been here, Emmanuel. I hope someday we'll see you in person so we can tell you that we don't believe you in person. But please, yes, okay, the central message is consistent.
Did Judaism have a dying and rising Messiah?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is like, if I believe, for example, I believe both in the Old and the New Testament. I believe all Scripture is God-breathed and useful for instruction.
That was an answer to my question.
I have another question when that one's done.
Yeah, Emmanuel, I'm gonna rope you back here, corral you back into the conversation that JMike asked you a question. So, JMike, why don't you go ahead and ask the question again? And I think maybe Emmanuel was just waiting for his turn to speak. Go ahead and ask that again.
Yeah, in Judaism, was the Messiah a concept of a dying and rising God?
Absolutely. For example, in the book of Jonah, I think it's in Jonah chapter 2, you see that a whale swallowed a prophet, and after 3 days, God...
I'm not sure. I asked the question, and I don't know if you're answering the yes part or the no part. So could you just tell me yes? And
I'm saying yes, it is.
Okay. That's all we need. Yeah, go on. What was your next question, Mike?
Well, no, I was just saying, well, it's not, right? Because they had like a type of ruler, right? Like a king that would come down and, because you have to understand, during the intertestamental period, which is the time between the books of the New Testament, like the Pauline epistles and the New Testament, in this time period, you have Jews being oppressed by the Ptolemies, the Seleucid kings, the Babylonians, the Syrians, the Romans, the Greeks, and what you get is this like longing for this type of like rising over the oppression, right, where the independence is gained back to the people, to God's people. The Messiah was never prophesied to be anything like Jesus in any way. You can try to look at things like in Psalms and say like, oh, he died for our transgressions. It's talking about the nation of Israel. When you look at this, you're not going to. This is why Jews don't agree, right, with the New Testament.
I just Googled it, and I've got several pages. There is no specific doctrinal view of Jesus in the tradition of Judaism. Here I've got JewsForJesus.org saying that we don't believe that Jesus rose from the dead because Jesus is not for us Jews to consider. What a weird sentence.
And in that intertestamental period of time, you get like different ways of looking at the Jewish Messiah, and it's never in that light. There's several different ways you could view it, but it's not in that way. So that's why I don't see the harmony there.
Right. So, Emmanuel, so what you're saying is because there's an Old Testament story of somebody going inside of a fish for 3 days, that is enough for you to establish that that the Jews had a concept of a Jesus-like Savior.
What I'm saying is it's really dishonest to say that the concept of dying, like there's a person that will die for the sins of humanity and he will rise again. It has never been recorded in scriptures. I think.
Of course, it's been recorded in scriptures. It just hasn't been recorded in history or reality. It's been recorded in scriptures. Spider-Man's been recorded in comic books.
Like I could give you like an example.
I'd love it. Give us an example.
That's where we're at, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In Acts 10, verse 43, it says, "To him all the prophets bear witness that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins."
Why are we citing Acts?
His name.
Yeah. What is that supposed to be proof of?
It says that the Old Testament prophets have prophesied that
You're using the you're using the New Testament to assess that. You're going to have to show the congruence within the Old Testament, not like, yeah, well, we had the first transcript of the movie and like, you know, like, oh, we could write the second one. It's like that's not compelling in any way.
Yeah, that's like in Avengers Endgame when Captain America gets a hold of Mjolnir. That somehow proves that what happened in, what was that? Age of Ultron.
Right.
That doesn't tell us anything. So what? Emmanuel, really?
Also,
that's your go-to verse?
In Numbers, isn't there a talking donkey here in Numbers 21 when Balaam is beating his donkey, trying to get the donkey to go forward, and the donkey won't move because there's a scary demon in front of him, and donkey says, why won't you move? And the donkey turns around and says, what have I done to you that you would strike me these 3 times? And Balaam says to the donkey, you've made a fool of me. And the donkey says to Balaam, am I not your donkey, which you've ridden to me? Like, he has a conversation with the donkey, dude. If you're going to say, well, that's just poetry, that's a story, how do you know the difference? If the Old Testament and the New Testament go so well together, how do you know which parts to believe and which parts not to believe? Or do you think the donkey talked? Like, where are you at in this, dude?
Was there a talking donkey, Emmanuel?
Was there a talking donkey?
I believe that all scripture is God breathed.
I want to hear you say, I believe that there was a talking donkey, Emmanuel. Tell that. Say, Johnny, there was a talking donkey in real history.
I do believe that snakes were talking and donkeys were talking. I do believe that.
Oh, all right.
Wild.
So
Shrek might have been a documentary, it turns out.
I got to ask, though, I got to ask, Emmanuel, in virtue of what do you think that that's true other than some book says a thing about it? Like, have you watched a snake talk before?
No, I haven't. But
okay, great. So then what? Okay, so then other than the book, what raises the probability that that's true? We understand the book says it. We want to know, like, what is something that a non-believer can sink their teeth into, right? We understand what the book says. Many of us in the audience used to be Christians, so they're very familiar with what it says. We want to know something tangible. What is that? What makes you think? Let me put it this way: is the book the only reason that you have to think that snakes can talk?
Yeah, probably.
It's the only reason that you have. Okay, that answers so much for me in that one sentence. So you only care that the book says a thing, and you don't care about the independent attestation, the independent justification. Imagine that Forrest just hands you a biology book, and he says, Chapter 13, evolution's true. Hardy Weinberg equal. Oh shit! Fuck! I took a page out of your book.
Yeah, I was doing it all day.
Hardy Weinberg. He's telling me about the Hardy Weinberg equation and how much evolution is occurring in a population. And he says, you ask why? Why is that true? I want to know. And Forrest answers, just read chapter 13.
It's in the book.
It's in the book.
It's right there.
Would that be sloppy? Would that be sloppy for Forrest to do?
That wouldn't be, but if it comes with a warning...
It wouldn't be sloppy to hand a book to somebody without justifying it. Look, the book can be independently justified, right? Forrest can go show you.
I can talk all day about it. Let me build on that then. Emmanuel, just out of curiosity, why do you think that I believe that evolution is real?
Because one time you talked, I think you were over the line in, like, I know you studied the theory of evolution. So I understand that since it is like a scientific fact or scientific model, I know that you believe it because you think science is the objective truth.
No.
Things.
Wrong.
And
0 points,
wrong.
Emmanuel.
I can tell you why I think that evolution is real. It's because I have evidence that backs it up. I have proof of it. I have a reason to believe it because I have actual objective evidence that I can fact check from several different sources that all point to the same thing. And I have no evidence that contradicts it whatsoever. That's why I think evolution is real. And that's why I think anything that I think is real, is because I have evidence that backs it up. Not because I read it somewhere, not because it's just a thing in science, so I'm supposed to believe it, not because a professor told me once, not because of any of that. It's because I have evidence to back it up. So that's why I think that evolution is real. And your argument here is, I know the Bible is true because the Bible says it's true. Do you understand why those are very different?
If you start with the premise that God could do anything, then all the things that you object to, like the talking animals and stuff, could be possible. within
Yes,
that
because it's a panacea. You created the cure for any problem that you ever could create. Look, all you're saying is like, why does this cup exist? Oh, well, because there's an entity that has the ability to produce the cup, and he desires that the cup be produced, and he has no reasons for the cup not to be produced. You can literally look at any object ever and explain anything with that criteria. He can do anything, and he desires it. That is not a hypothesis. That is a just so story that is very uninteresting, that won't compel anybody. Is it coming out?
Circular reasoning is what that is, yes.
So yeah, one thing you can do is to help illustrate it. If you have a power strip,
Oh,
at your
don't do
house,
it. I was going to ask him to bring us a surge protector.
Get a surge
I was
protector
asking him
and plug
for
it
that.
into
Yeah.
itself and try to turn it on and see if you get power, because that's all we're hearing so far.
Let me ask you a follow-up question on that.
Oh, I didn't even say.
Yeah. They were.
I was freaking out because
Oh, I
that's
love
the
you.
exact
Great
conversation we were
minds,
having
eh?
last night about
Yeah.
the cup being created.
Yeah.
Really quick, Emmanuel, while we're here, I have other just brief questions. The logic that you just gave when you said if you start from the presupposition that God can do anything, then of course snakes can talk and donkeys can talk. Just out of curiosity, is there anything at all, anything that you could not justify believing in based on that?
I think you open up a worldview that it makes everything possible.
Yeah,
in that world.
I agree.
Oh.
So what good is a mental model? What use is a mental model that will allow you to believe absolutely anything? How is that different than just saying, I don't care what's true, I want to believe this because I want to believe it because I want to believe it?
Naturalism can do anything. I win, right? It has the power to do all the stuff.
Emmanuel.
We did it.
The Bible says that it's true.
And look at that.
Wait,
Look. Turn on.
it is warm. Are we getting-
Yeah, it's
No,
warm.
I
Oh,
was
that
just-
must mean it's true.
it was-
This is what you sound like. Honestly. No hate, okay? But this doesn't work. It's broken. Get good. Stop.
I just want to reiterate my question because I would love for you to answer it. Of what use is a logical model, is a mental pathway that allows you to believe absolutely anything? How is that useful to you?
It's useful in a sense that I will avoid the warnings. For example, if you show me any scientific theory or scientific fact, it doesn't come with a warning. If I whether I agree with whatever scientific model that you have, whether I agree or disagree, doesn't have any kind of consequence to my life. But there's a possible consequence that there might be a damnation or eternal punishment. So
I have to be honest with you.
I believe
The first thing you just said was the most honest you have ever been. Genuinely. I'm actually thrilled with what you just said. As long as you have an ability to believe anything you want to believe, as long as you start from the idea that God can do anything, it doesn't matter. Anything that I want to justify, then whatever scientific facts I give you, whatever I can prove to you, you can decide whether or not you want to believe it, and it has no bearing on your life. That's it. That's the utility, is you've escaped the responsibility of being fucking honest with yourself. Congratulations. That's what you've done.
Forrest, I believe that I had a conversation with Emmanuel once upon a time with the inestimable Katie Montgomery, where Emmanuel, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this was you, that you said you were afraid to say anything critical about the Bible and God because you were afraid of damnation. So I set up an alternate universe, right, where God created childhood pea cancer and therefore was not a loving God. That was you, right?
yeah, we were talking about that scenario.
Yeah.
I remember.
Emmanuel, I'm sorry that you're going through this and you're continuing to go through this, that you have a cosmic Luger pointed up to your head that you can't even question the bogus, flimsy claims of a fairy tale book without fear of burning forever in hell or being obliterated. That's got to be terrible. And it sounds like I'm making fun, but I'm not.
No,
you don't have to be living like that. We don't. Some of us here have and maybe still struggle with it. You can let go of God and all that stupid crap and just live in an actual world. And there's plenty of people who will be there to support you and love you no matter what you believe. All right? So, man, oh man, Emmanuel, it's fun to take your calls, but it also makes me sad.
Yeah, I could go all day with Emmanuel, but like honestly, at the end of the day, like I said, you've told, and this isn't even the first time that you've said something similar to me, because you and I have talked here, we've talked over on the Line Network, we've talked a million times, and it's always the same thing. I believe this because I have to believe this, because I'll be damned if I don't, or I believe this because I just want to, because I think God can do anything, and like this isn't even the first time that you yourself have said, this is just what I have to do. It's what I need to, and it just, man, it tears me up. It genuinely does. Like I hope that the people listening to this learn from you and learn how not to think. And I hope someday that you will come and have an honest, actual, real conversation with us. And maybe even an honest, actual, real conversation with yourself that isn't hidden behind, well, God did it, so therefore it's just because God. And you actually start asking some real questions. It might just blow your mind.
Yeah, and I want to know, Emmanuel, you call in to us. It sounds like you are, to call a guy we had a couple of weeks ago, a seeker. It looks like you're seeking information. Maybe you're trying to have a conversation. Are you maybe trying to convince yourself that this bogus crap isn't real? Are you on the brink of deconversion, but you're waiting for that argument that we'll make to set you free? Or do you think you're doing God's work and that you're going to reach people? And I've said this before to you, and I don't make you feel too bad, but like you're doing a terrible job of proselytizing the Word of God. There's probably not a single person you've ever taught, that you've ever seen your videos, who believes in God more strongly after having heard your arguments. And it's not necessarily your fault. There's not really any good reason to believe, and you're stuck with, it's like you're Hawkeye and you send all the good arrows are gone, and all you got is flimsy, broken, shattered arrows. So, Emmanuel, I want to send you on your way, all right? And I hate to even suggest this. I wish you would convert to some form of Christianity that doesn't have eternal damnation. Maybe
I'd be one step down.
Yeah, one step down. Maybe one where you go and you go through a purgatory kind of a situation. At least then you'd give yourself some breathing room to examine these claims. So go forth and do that, please. Please take care of yourself, Emmanuel. Call back and give us something new.
Really quick, anybody in the audience, were you convinced at all by Emmanuel's arguments? Have you ever been? Has Emmanuel ever said anything that, no?
Not booing you, Emmanuel.
If you're doing the Lord's work by calling us, you're doing a disservice to the Lord.
Yeah.
If God sent you, then God's dumber than we thought.
Yeah. You're not dumb. We don't hate you, but like your arguments are bad.
That's what I wanted to add is just focus that what we're arguing on is the content of what's being said and the inferences that you're using to get from one piece to the other, which are really non-existent.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're a great person, Emmanuel. I don't know, but this is just really bottom level reasoning, and I don't think that, I don't want to add more to the fire already, but it would benefit you. I told somebody on Talk Heathen that this is how you protect yourself from crypto scams and NFT scams and all sorts of, self-help gurus that want to try to take your money from you. And so I would just,
It's so frustrating when you butt up against that deliberate refusal to actually think about something. Just like, well, God did it, and God's able to do it because God's able to do it.
Yeah.
And like that, I wish that he would try, like as we've said several times before, try exactly that with anything else. I believe your God isn't real, and I believe Jesus isn't real, and I believe the Bible isn't real. I believe none of that because I talked to some other dude who said so, and he said it, and I know he's cool because he said he's cool, and he said he could do it. Like, just replace it with some other guy. I know Islam is true because it says so in the Quran. Is that correct now? I'm talking about rolling the closet goblin. I have this magical goblin that lives in my closet and eats Subway sandwiches. You can't prove he isn't real. You can't prove it isn't true. And he said he's real, so therefore he is, right? Is there anything, any stupid, crazy thing that you couldn't believe in with this? And that's the difference between faith and reason. With reason, absolutely there are limits to what I could believe in. I have to have a reason to believe it. I can't just decide I want to. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Anatar, Lord of Gifts, says that he's trustworthy.
Yes.
So he's trustworthy.
Armin's got a good one. He said it's like everyone uses like a god of the gaps. He's like, when you just place that god there, I have a god eater who comes in and eats that god.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
I love that. That's great.
Blob.
We got ourselves an audience question or comment. Love to hear it. Let's go ahead to the audience cam.
Hey, there they are.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
So, my question kind of builds off of what Emmanuel was talking about just a few minutes ago. And Johnny, you kind of started to answer this like towards the end of your rant.
Yeah.
But which I appreciate, but also
Call it what it is. Yeah.
Wrestling promo.
Yeah. I hate that guy. Go on.
So, in order to start casting off these sort of religious weights we've been carrying around, maybe grown up with, maybe been feeling like there's a lot of pressure in order to perform, like, how would you start doing that? How do you, like, what are the actionable steps that you can start taking to start, like, even changing your brain space, to give you the space to start questioning, like you said? I feel like, for me, my spiritual leader had to die. Someone had to die in order for me to start really thinking about these things. And I don't want that for other people. I want them to be able to, like, have the space and recognize their own power before, not that, like, he died so I could do this, right?
It's a win is a win.
No.
A win is a win.
We completely understand what you're saying.
We've got a manual for deconversion right here. All right? Almost everybody in this room is pretty familiar with this book on some level, right? At least statistically, the people that we've talked to, all right? They've read through this book. They found the donkey passage. They know about the light, plants before there was light. They start finding contradictions. I have a friend that was studying to be a minister, deconverted himself in mid-ministry by becoming familiar with this book. But if you're not Christian, you don't need to worry about this. I think exploring and understanding your faith and and analyzing it with a critical eye will help you start seeing that there's plenty of holes.
That's the thing. How do you develop a critical eye?
I think listening to debates is a really good, depending on who's debating, I guess, because you might get some all shit show kind of yelling matches. But I think debates help a lot in the sense that it's gonna, if you're not familiar, if you've never like put yourself in that situation of two people competing on this, it might be like a shock to you to see how well the opposition is doing.
Yeah.
And that might, even if you don't care about debates going further, it might be the catalyst that sends you kind of reading books and doing that. For me, that was like a huge thing, because I was talking on Talk Heathen, I was talking to a friend of mine who's an atheist, and I had more kind of spiritual, ways of thinking. And when I brought it up and I felt comfortable, I was like, oh, I could talk about this. I felt so stupid afterwards because he just like tore everything that I said to shreds. And I was like, okay, well, what do I believe? And then that sent me down this, I think I don't believe in any of this stuff. And then I remember like talking to my mom and being like, I think I'm an atheist, I think there's something that's got to be the catalyst, but I think that's the problem. Like, what the fuck is that thing that's going to do that? I don't know. It's different for everybody, I guess.
If I could also, almost every atheist I've spoken to has a similar story like that, where it's like, we talked about this in Talk Heathen a little bit ago. I was looking for a reason to disprove evolution, and the more I studied it, the more I realized it made sense. I was looking for the best compelling argument for God, and the more I looked for one, the more I realized I didn't have one. And me as an educator, if you've never been completely stumped by a classroom full of third graders, you've never taught. That's the best part of teaching. And I remember when I was first starting out, I was doing informal education, and I was visiting the school teaching some stuff about polymers or some whatever thing. I was explaining to these third grade kids what an atom was, and they did what kids do. They kept asking, how do you know that? How do you know that? Why? And I got to this point where I was like, I don't freaking know. And I went back at that day. I was in my probably late teens at the time. I was working for this little education company, go out and doing these little workshops. And I went home and I was like, I freaking, my faith in science has been shaken. What do I do? And I started learning about Rutherford's experiments. I started learning about the different phases of how we know what we know about atoms. And then sure enough, that's a big part of getting a STEM degree as well, is they go through that history, but I hadn't done that yet. that if I had an answer for anybody, because I haven't had that same kind of deconstruction story, but
Like
if
a crossroads type of.
yeah, just ask your most sacred, deeply held beliefs. Just ask yourself, how do you know that? And when you have an answer, ask, how do you know that? And like really dig down. And it's very easy to mistake what I'm saying as like that kind of like, what's the guy, Saiten Bergen?
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Where it's like, how do you know anything's real?
Yeah.
How do you know you're not just a brain in a jar? How do you know blah, blah, blah? Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying like, if you're talking about reality, let's agree on the fact that this reality is where we live. At least we can go with that. I think, therefore I am type shit. And like, if this is actually where I'm living, then how do I know that this table is made of atoms? Well, I can actually break that down for you. And how do I know these atoms are made of protons, neutrons, and electrons? I can break that down for you. How do I know the positions of those protons, neutrons, and electrons and the configuration of them? How do I know the shapes of the molecules? How do I know, like, we can go down this level by level. And if I hit a point where I don't have an answer, that's where I'm either going to shut up or I'm going to go look for that answer. And I think it can be done as well. Again, I don't have the same deconstruction story, so forgive me if this is tone deaf, but like I think you can do the same thing with religious belief. It's like, okay, well, I know I live in this reality and donkeys talked once. Well, how do I know that? Well, it's in a book. Okay. Lord of the Rings is a book too. There's a lot of talking shit in there too. Not too fond of that one. That's not one that I'm going to agree with. But what about the snake one? Well, does that really stand to reason? Does that really make, how do I actually, and am I hinging, as Amanuel is, on it says it, therefore it must be true? And then ask the crucial question, would you ever do that with anything else ever?
Yeah, exactly.
Would you ever use that line or use it for anything else? Those are my actionable steps, in my opinion. And
It's funny you say, because that's my friend who was telling you about watch the Ken Ham Villanai debate told me, he was like, I just tried to apply all of that to other things and realize how much I was special pleading.
That's what I did. I grew up pagan. I was raised to believe in ghosts and magic, and you'd draw a pentagram on the ground and burn these herbs and have good luck and shit like that. And in my probably late teens, I came to this point where I was like, I was trying to be a scientist. I wanted so badly to go learn science, and I had this kind of reckoning where I was like, I have a completely different set of rules for what my family's taught me than I have for literally everything else in my life. A different set of logical rules, a different set of moral rules. And the second I applied the same principles to that as I do to anything else, fell apart overnight.
Professionally, allegedly, I'm an attorney, and I look through, I have a position that I have to argue for. I have to convince somebody of a particular position. And I can't just do it from feelings, and I can't do it out of fear, and I can't do it out of because one book says so. I have to pull from multiple sources of information, and I have to pull line by line citations, and I have to authenticate the information. And this happened to me recently, where I thought I was onto something super great, right? And then I actually dug into the material and I found out, oh, wait, the expert didn't actually find that. This particular thing didn't happen. I can't make that argument. It may be true.
Yeah.
Right? But I can't make the argument that it's true or that it's false. I just have to not talk about it and try to make my case through another way.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how reality works. We kind of do it all the time. We just don't do it in a structured way. Right? So that's
that story you just told. It happens all the time in every science lab I've ever worked in, every degree program I've ever studied in. Even when I'm making reactoria videos on YouTube, I watch whatever thing I'm supposed to react to, and I go and grab all my old textbooks and I search on Google Scholar. I'm trying to find stuff, and if I can't find, I'll have the answer, but I need to make double, triple, quadruple sure that that's what works. And if I can't find a good reason to believe, I'm not going to put it in the video, and also I'm going to go home and study more and make sure that I actually know what I thought I knew. Maybe I made a mistake, and you should be excited. It's great when you're wrong. When you're wrong, that means you learned a new thing and you're now smarter. That's a wonderful situation.
You have a more defensible position.
Yes.
It's a great thing.
You now are better at being a person.
People do this thing where, like, if they have something horrible in their life happen, like someone cheats on them, a friend does something, lies to them, and you go and you investigate and you try to get to the bottom of that. You try to find out if it's true. You want to know if it's true or wrong. There's just something weird that people, they do get in these moments where they try to employ the best chain of reasoning so they get to the bottom of it, so they can know the truth, so they can have this peace of mind behind it. Then when it comes to this other thing that's somehow even more important than anything else, there's this disconnect.
Yeah.
They don't do that. But they'll be damn sure to investigate whether or not their friend, Ted, was lying to them, and that their girlfriend or boyfriend was cheating on them. And
fuck Ted, by the way.
Yeah, fuck Ted. Yeah, and I think that might be it in a lot of ways. Is There's just this weird thing where you don't think about that in this context. You think about this when it like really appeals to you, right? And you specifically. But in this, you're like the star player. You're part of this role of this good and evil, and you don't want to it's like you've been put onto you something greater than yourself almost. And so, well, supposedly. And so I think it's hard for people to divorce themselves from that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm totally with you there.
Yeah.
I agree. And also not tone deaf, Forrest. Thank you for your reactions. Thank you all for your thoughts.
I appreciate it. Before you go, can we ask you a question, dear kind audience member? On a scale from 1 to Eraserhead, how weird is it talking to us in this fishbowl at this moment and seeing us on a screen over there? Who are you who do you react to? Which one of us do you watch?
I don't know. I think it's like right in the middle. It's like a solid 5.
You heard it here first, folks. Come on down and watch us live in Austin. You might just be able to have a middle weird experience talking to some strange men in a booth. It'll be great.
Yeah, it's blue velvet level weird. It's not Eraserhead.
Yeah. Thank you so much
you
for your question. We appreciate it.
Let's go on to our next call. I can go ahead and pull it up. Say we do Otari. Are you interested?
I'm down with Otari.
All right, let's do Otari. Is a ambiguously gendered individual coming out of Georgia, the nation of Georgia, and says that Otari says that they have issues with evolution. What are the issues? What do you got? We've got kind of a guy. It's kind of his thing.
I'm Forrest. I study this stuff.
It's
for a
his
living.
bag.
How are you?
So, what are your issues?
Well, I have the question with Forrest, if I may.
Yeah.
So we could, the taste can account for so-called bad design in humans by claiming that we are fallen due to the original sin. So I'm curious, how could evolution could account for so-called bad designs?
So I'm sorry, just so I understand, you're saying that you account problems with humans, the human body maybe, for the fall, the beginning of sin. How does evolution account for bad design in humans? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of things that are wrong with humans, that are weird about the human body, and evolution explains them. So for example, the fact that we have wisdom teeth, we have a third set of molars. Why do we have them in the first place? Well, because we're great apes. All great apes have a 2-1-2-3 dental arcade. That means they have 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 premolars, and 3 molars on each quadrant of their mouth. So because we are great apes, we have that third molar in the first place. The reason why it gets impacted and gets to be a big problem for us is because over the course of especially the past about 2.5 million years, our heads have been getting bigger and bigger, and our faces have been getting smaller and smaller, and our jaws have been reducing back. When you look at our ancestors and when you look at other great apes, our cousins, you see a lot of what we call prognathism, which is where the front of the face kind of juts out like this. And as our faces got flatter and smaller, this jaw became reduced. We have less space for our teeth. And now, for most of human history, we've had kind of a tough diet. We had to chew a lot. That actually changes the way that your teeth are going to develop and come in. But especially nowadays, with our modern, soft, nutrient-rich diets, we end up getting those third molars coming in. They jam up our mouths. They cause impactions and infections and abscesses, and you die in a really, really bad way. And that's a problem of evolution. That's something that is the result of our evolutionary history. It's what you could call bad design in humans. And there's a million other things like that evolution accounts for. For example, the way that and I'm not just trying to give you a gish gallop of a bunch of different things. I'm just giving you some examples here. The fact that we have big blind spots in our eyes because our optic nerve and all the arteries that feed your eye, they go in right behind in the middle of your eyeball, and they have to pass through the retina and then innervate and supply the retina in the front. So it obstructs the light coming through, and there's a big gap where the light can't actually do anything anyway. And so you have big blind spots in your vision that your brain just kind of has to fill in and make up and just deal with. Because we are so recently bipedal, walking on 2 legs, we have issues with our hips, and we have issues with our backs, and we have issues with our knees, and we have issues with our feet sometimes. Like, those are problems of just having this be a recent development that hasn't had the selection pressure to weed out the issues. Same thing with people who have problems giving birth. The reason why humans have a much more difficult time giving birth than most other animals, certainly most other great apes, is because our heads have gotten so much bigger and our pelvises haven't kept up with that yet. And so now you have this issue of trying to fit a baby the size of a watermelon out of a cervix the size of a quarter. You have a big problem, right? And you have to have hip separation sometimes, and you have all sorts of nerve damage. And I've yet to meet a woman who's had children who hasn't talked to me about how she can't feel part of her foot or stomach or pee herself whenever she laughs and all these things like that. That's common issues because of our recent evolution. And so if you were to account this to our evolutionary history, and you look at all the various problems and weirdness that come along with humans, be it our vagus nerves, be it the way our eyes don't work super well, the size of our domes, all these things, not only are they explained, but we can also make testable predictions about them. We can learn more stuff about them, and we can see evolutionary trends that lead even today about them. But when you explain it with the fall of man, with original sin, then you have to now say that there was this garden where God put two people who didn't know what evil was and told them not to do a thing, and they didn't know why they shouldn't do a thing because they didn't know what wrong was. And then when they did the thing, now all of a sudden, birth is more painful, which is what it says in the Bible. God told the very first lie in history. God said, if you eat from this tree, you'll die. That was a lie. He was the first liar ever. And then they ate from the tree, which they didn't know was wrong because they couldn't have known that was wrong because they hadn't eaten from the tree yet. And then all of a sudden they knew what right and wrong was. And in order to punish them, God made birth painful for women and said that women have to be subservient to men. What the fuck is that? That's insane. So that's a much more expensive answer that you're giving. It's a much more expensive assumption you're making because you have no evidence for that. And that's also horrible. That is a hideous, disgusting thing for a rational, thinking thing like a God to do. Whereas evolution, being a process that doesn't have a mind guiding it, some shit went wrong. And that's the point of medicine, is to try to fix that.
Otari, what do you think about that?
I think that while what Forest said was wrong at the last seconds, I mean, yes, they didn't know from right from wrong as we understand it, but what they knew was all that they needed. They knew that they should not have eaten the apple, and they did it. And it's also not true that they did not cause death as a result of that.
Okay, Otari, Forrest talked about all this evolutionary biology, okay? And all of these like anatomical and physiological facts that we know about the human body, right? And how that can be ascribed to developments over millions of years. And no offense, but you zeroed in that story about some people eating an apple. That's what you chose to respond to. Why don't you forget about the stupid apple story? Let's focus on the evolutionary biology parts that Forrest said. What is your response to that?
I have no response to it. I'm just curious. And if I may, I have other questions about
I'm sorry, could you repeat yourself? Because I didn't catch that.
I have other questions about
No, not a question.
It's nice.
Johnny's asked you two times.
Yeah, it's nice to have things. But Otari, what is your response to Forrest's rant, informative lecture about biology? What is your response to that?
I mean, I'm not evolutionist. I was just curious about those.
All right. Well, are you going to go ahead and do some research into evolutionary biology? Maybe take a course or get some textbooks or something?
Can I just ask?
I'm not trying to do well.
If I could recommend, there's this
other questions.
there's this YouTuber named Forest Valkai, which has a whole series called The Light of Evolution, which is a 4-part series in plain language that anybody can understand about how evolution works and how we know what we know about it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You should check it out. It's pretty cool.
Interesting stuff. I want Mike to ask his question, but Otari, can I get you to promise here on the air that you're going to go ahead and maybe do that or read some books about evolution instead of just call and have us do the work for you? Will you do that? Will you promise on the air in front of thousands of people that you're going to do some research into biological science and evolution?
No.
Cool.
Nice.
Didn't think so.
JMike, what do you got?
At least he's honest.
Yeah,
at least he's
I
honest.
don't care. I was going to ask if he even knows what an allele is before we talk about evolution.
Well, there might be a language barrier there anyway.
Yeah, I figured there might be a language
Otari, thank you for being honest. Thank you for...
Answer the question.
I'm okay.
I would take one more.
Yeah, let's do it. What do you got?
Yeah, what's your one more question, Otari?
So, atheists claim that homosexuality is not a choice. But if evolution is true, why did not it cause to become extinct over time?
Sure. Okay. So 2 major things there. Number one, we don't claim that's not a choice. There is mountains of evidence proving that that's not a choice. And we'll get back to that later on. Number 2 is that how it doesn't lead to extinction is that it's not a 100% thing. If you look at animals like bonobo chimps, which they're just called bonobos, but like bonobos are one of our closest living relatives, and they are like 100% bisexual across the board. They have sex all the time with all different sexes in their species, all just their favorite thing to do.
Giggity.
Right? They're fantastic creatures. You should look them up. But because they're bisexual and not completely homosexual, they can still reproduce and carry on. If a species was 100% homosexual, maybe there would be some issues, but not necessarily. Consider, for example, whiptail lizards right here in the mainly in the American Southwest, but I think they get this far. These are completely parthenogenic. This entire species only has females. All of the men died off, and yet the females are able to self-fertilize their eggs. But in order to do that, they need to have sex with another female. And they need to take on gender roles where one female acts like a male, and then through that act of copulation with another female, are they able to self-fertilize? Super cool stuff. But the reason that's a rare example. The point is, the reason why homosexuality doesn't lead to extinction is because they're not 100% of the population. As long as there's a breeding pair, there will be plenty. And also, even if everybody was homosexual, homosexuals can still have children. Yeah. They might not be into that, but they can still do it in this way. But yeah, there's just loads that are weird with that assumption. There's lots of reasons why homosexuality isn't an issue, and there's even several hypotheses about why it's actually a benefit. We don't know for sure what the actual evolutionary benefit of homosexuality is. What we do know for sure is that it's been observed in over 1,500 animal species. There are gay lions, there are gay giraffes, lots of giraffes are gay, there are gay insects, there are gay birds, there are gay hedgehogs. We've seen homosexual behaviors in over 1,500 animal species. So something that's that ubiquitous across the animal kingdom clearly has some sort of evolutionary or ecological benefit. And there are lots of hypotheses about why. Some of them are really funny, but that's not the point. The point is that it's clearly not causing any harm. It's probably actually doing some good. And not everybody is gay, or at least not as much as, never mind.
Otari, did you know about any of that stuff? Have you heard that stuff before?
No.
Okay.
There you go.
So, when I asked you before about doing some research into biology and evolution and stuff like that, I know it's fun to call a bunch of talking heads on YouTube and have them answer the questions for you, but reading is fundamental. And so maybe go to your local library, get some books on this subject, and you might find yourself, you open that book and you just can't get out.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. That's why I fell in love with science. I couldn't stop learning.
I predict he won't open the book based on his responses.
Otari, Mike. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know if you think it's a choice, why don't you be gay? Just do it right now.
Because
go out and go be gay with somebody.
Because to it.
It would what?
not everyone is predisposed to it. Some has to have commit many mortal sins to maybe open to that kind of degeneracy.
Yeah, I heard the word degeneracy at the end. That's all I need to know.
I'm going to go ahead and mute you. I'm going to go ahead and give you the hall pass, all right? Otari, go ahead in the nation of Georgia. Go find yourself someone. Go be gay for a weekend.
Try it out.
All right? Give it a try, and you can call back and report your gay experiences with us on the air. And while you're there, maybe you can go with that person, go to the library, pick up some books on evolutionary biology, and who knows?
Be a good date.
Yeah. Thank you so much
That's
for
romance.
calling. I really do hope that you stop asking questions and start seeking answers.
You know what?
Yeah.
Honestly,
Go ahead.
the best evidence, I think, that homosexuality is not a choice, straight women. No one would choose this if they had a choice. No one would be with this. You know what I mean?
Especially this.
The fact that people choose to have to be with this, if it was a choice, no one would choose this. Come on.
I'm gonna say that if you happen to be in the Austin area 1 month approximately from now, September 24th, 2023, then please join us here at the Free Thought Library for a live broadcast of Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience. Talk Heathen will be hosted by Objectively Dan and Sophia Spina. The Atheist Experience will be hosted by Objectively Dan and Jamie the Blind Limey. Wow.
Hey.
Double duty here on Dan. Dan's getting double teamed. Doors open at noon, and we hope to see you there by choice. Well, that's cool. Okay, let's go ahead and we were talking about taking a call.
Let's get a
I'm liking number 31. Oh, yeah, we have super chats, too.
Super chat. Go ahead.
We have our job, don't we?
Yes. So we got Mr. D Madness again for $5. I just think it's sad that they embrace fiction over logic, not hate, but more like when you see somebody doing something that's harmful. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And to clarify, the end stuff that I was saying was not meant to be towards you, but just general kind of in the vein of the conversations that happen. But we totally get you.
We said we didn't hate Amanuel. We feel really bad that he's there. So,
and it sucks because I understand how that must sound because I know how it sounds to me when a Christian says, "I feel so bad for you." You know what I mean? But honestly, it's just it sucks to hear somebody refuse to think about a thing. That's rough.
So what else you got here?
So we got Justin for $10. Thank you so much. We got 3 super awesome takes on each caller's claims. There's a round earther, a guy with a guy with the big philosophical guns. Oh, thank you. Yeah, because they're definitely not physical. And a very smooth and charming individual with a sense of humor.
Yeah, I know we know Forrest is here, but what about me and JMike?
Yeah.
All right. My massive philosophical guns.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay, we got a little bit more. Mr. D Madness again. You want to go ahead and read that
Let's go D Madness again. Thank you so much. That's
My goodness.
15 now from D Madness.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's one's. Oh, sorry. I can't read, guys. This one's just to say that that in my opinion, there's only one pressing question regarding religion. Could God have microwaved burritos so hot that even he could not even eat it? Well, most won't really. They've manipulated their omnipotence to a maximal notion. I've met some people on TikTok who do hold to that view that God can do anything that's logically impossible. So it's a very strange view.
Can I read the next one? Jason Sherwood's a member of 2 years, $2. He wanted to give his 2 cents, but YouTube won't let you. You know what? That makes you worse than the people who didn't want to give $2.
That's what it is.
Right, it is what it is. Thank you so much for that one.
I think we still got one.
We got some more.
We got plenty more.
LH.
No, make him read it. Make Forrest read this one.
Read
Go
this
ahead,
one.
come on.
LHRPG official, genuinely thank you so much for the $2. Forest Valkai is a fucking genius. Love you, bro.
Clip that so we can use that against him.
Yeah.
Forever.
I really don't. I
Look at
have a
this
hard time with
conceited guy
compliments.
over here.
Thank you very much. That really does mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for saying that. I can't wait to disappoint you.
Yeah.
Whoa, Bean Fairy. Wow. Bean Fairy.
Jesus of Christland.
$99.99 from Bean Fairy. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
we really
that's
appreciate
insane.
it. It makes all the equipment keep running. So we really appreciate all of it.
That pays his salary right there.
Yeah.
It's a big salary to pay of $0 for all this. No, Jesus was a failed apocalyptic preacher. It's the most harmonized message throughout the New Testament. The coming of the Son of Man before the disciples' generation was taught over and over again by Jesus, taught by the disciples who heard him firsthand. And Paul, it's a biblical fact. Now, I have to go on this real quick.
Yeah.
They're absolutely right. Be fair is right. In 1 Thessalonians 4, and I believe in 1 Corinthians 15. So 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 14 through 18, Paul even states himself, we who are left who will be taken up. Paul thinks that this is going to happen in his generation. He's convinced of this happening. And so you have this really kind of neat thing where Jesus is starting out apocalyptically. Could have started out his ministry with the fourth philosophy, the Sadducees, the Pharisees, right? But he has a message aligned with John the Baptist, who in the New Testament is an apocalyptic preacher. And they have an inline message of apocalyptic coming of the kingdom of God. When you go through the test, or when you look at the end of it with Paul, 1 Thessalonians 14, that's the earliest Christians we have talking about this. And so at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, you have, at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, you have an apocalyptic message. At the end of his ministry, you have early Christians believing in this apocalyptic message. You look at the earliest Gospels of Mark, and you have an apocalyptic message that becomes muted throughout Luke. Luke 17, 20 through 21 is a really good example of this. And John, I think it's John chapter 3, the kingdom of God, I think it's mentioned like one time, and it becomes a spiritual thing. And then in the Gospel of Thomas, a later non-canonical text, it spurns against the view of people who hold this apocalyptic message, and you don't spurn against the view unless people held the view, right? You would have no reason to do that. And fact check that if anyone's interested. You could look at the Gospel of Thomas, sayings 3 and sayings 118. I love that comment being fair. Yes, I love that stuff more than I love philosophy. So, yes, good stuff.
We got Thomas Gallipoli, $1.99. Triple awesomeness with Forrest, JMike, and Johnny Hart. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for the compliment.
Thank you.
JMike, what you got? What's next here?
You got you got to give me a breather from my rant.
Yeah.
Taken from Forrest's kind of feeling. I'm feeling the energies.
You got to learn to do like circular breathing.
Yeah,
rant.
okay.
Yes.
So I got Andrew's sword for $5. Forrest, do individuals with CAIS develop? Do Forrest. Forrest, do individuals with CIS develop female-like hip bones or male-like hip bones? Just curious.
So CIS is a complete androgen sensitivity syndrome, and what that means is you are usually you have XY allosomes, and you're chromosomally male, but you are pumping out. Also you probably have internal testes as well, and you're pumping out testosterone like crazy. But you lack the cell receptors for that testosterone to bind to. You are insensitive to the androgens, which are the male hormones, what we call the hormones that what's the word? Vitriolize? I can't remember the number off the top of my head. There's a really cool word for it. Virilize, that's the one.
Yeah. I was gonna say that.
I knew that word. I was like, I would kick myself all night.
I know, me too.
Yeah, these hormones that virilize the body. And so if you're completely insensitive to those, if you lack the receptors, the ability to take those up, then you will be phenotypically female. And so as far as like bone development is concerned, I'm pretty sure, I'm 99% sure that yes, you would still have female typical phenotypic development in bones. I know for sure that there are case studies on bone density in these ways. And I was just looking up, for just to be double sure here, I've got, the NIH, I've got this random paper that came up first thing here about bone mineral density in women living with CIS and or removed gonads, and it talks about how that would apply, but I don't want to say for sure. I'm 99% sure that yes, you would still have female phenotype even in bone shape development. Fact check me and let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, because I don't want to be spreading misinformation, and this is just off the top of my freaking head. So I'll do some more Googling, and if I find out I'm wrong later, I will stop the show and let you know. Otherwise, take that for what it is.
If a theist or a Christian I talked to said that to me, like, hey, this is the view, don't, fact check me, I could be wrong, I would have so much better conversations with people.
Well, I don't want to say anything, because I running off of what I know off the top of my head, I want to just immediately say yes. But knowing biology, there's probably some weird loophole where some other things, but like the way that your bones develop hormonally is that's going to be strongly influenced. And if you're insensitive to those hormones, it stands to reason that that wouldn't be a thing. So I'm looking right now at another paper, different clinical presentations and management in case. I'm going to just kind of scan through the abstract of this live on air and let you know if I see anything specific.
All right, we'll get through these last two. It looks like we have.
You do that, I'll do this.
So we have unapologetically Chrissy giving us $2. Hey, these guys need money. I think we talked to Chrissy earlier on Talk Heathen, if that's the same Chrissy. So shout out to Chrissy.
Don't need it, but thank you. Much appreciated.
And then we have Syrf, S-Y-R, Surf,
Yeah.
Syrf, for $10. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry for not saying your name correctly. Chrissy says you need money, so have some more. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Well, we're not that hard up, but I do appreciate your donations, these super chats. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
We're not starving. We're all right. All right, let's move along. We've got...
I just want to really quickly, I'm so sorry, I just want to read out just, again, the main thing that I'm looking for is pubic angle, because that would be the most diagnostic thing that I would be interested in. I can't find anything specifically about that. Pubic angle is at the bottom of your pelvis, the shape of the opening and the angle that the two sides of your pelvis meet together. And those are going to look very different between males and females typically, not always, but typically. And so this is looking at diagnosis based on, this is from this paper, different clinical presentations and management and complete androgen sensitivity syndrome, Lanicotti et al., from 2019, and they're talking about diagnosis based on presence of female external genitalia in 46 XY human individuals, normally developed but undescended testes, complete with unresponsiveness of target tissues to androgens. Subsequently, pelvic ultrasounds and magnetic resonance imaging is helpful in confirming the absence or presence of Mullerian structures. That's talking about uterus, fallopian tubes. Presence of blind ending vagina and identifying testes. So really this one is just talking about external genitalia and some what would be external genitalia remaining internal, and maybe the presence of also some female internal genitalia as well. So
you can look this stuff up. You don't have to just take our word for it, of course. And that's just Forrest doing things off the cuff.
Yeah, the main thing. Well, the question was specifically about hips, about the shape of the pelvis, and these are all things that I've already said. Is that you would have phenotypic development as if you were a typical female, and so you're going to have external presentation of a typical female.
Yeah.
I can't find anything specifically about pubic angles, and that's what the person was asking about was about hips and the shape of the pelvis. I don't have anything on that exactly. I can give you so many more things about it off the top of my head. And every damn paper. This is the third paper I've looked at, and it's just saying the same things. And so, I'll keep looking.
You're going to keep on. You're going to keep on searching. I know that Otari is going to probably cross those T's and dot those I's for you. When
for sure.
Information. Let's go ahead and get a call here from Jimmy. Jimmy is a he and a him, and he's coming out of Texas. And Jimmy says, listen, these here are fighting words for us. Get ready. You ready?
Oh, I just found one about pubic angles from the Journal of Pediatric Urology.
Forrest is looking up pubic angles on ACA computers, but Jimmy wants to say that Forrest has a ridiculous interpretation of the Edenic myth and original sin.
Okay.
Jimmy, let's have it. Give us your critique. What you got?
Yeah, I would recommend to Forrest to watch a previous episode of the Atheist Experience with Mitchell Diamond, where he speaks of an interpretation of the Edenic myth by Joseph Campbell.
Oh.
Where,
the Nazi apologist, Joseph Campbell?
Yeah. So he has this interpretation where the Edenic myth is sort of like analogous for our ancestral apes to higher primates. It's this event in history where the eating of the fruit doesn't mean that you die. I don't know where he got that from, but it's said in scripture that if you eat of the fruit, you will see like us. You will see like the gods.
Bible.
And it's referring to higher consciousness. So it's this leap from our ancestral apes to higher consciousness in primates that we are reflective of today. And I don't know. I really recommend for him to watch that episode with Mitchell Diamond and Tracy Harris if he ever gets a chance, because I really think that would help him out in interpreting these things in a little bit more, complex manner. Because I feel that there is no really contradiction in Scripture. I think contradiction comes from a superficial and I would even say naive interpretation of Scripture.
Genesis chapter 2:16, and the Lord God commanded the man, saying, You shall surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. End quote. That's where I got that from, was from God. He said, if you eat this fruit, you will die. And if you think that he was being philosophical or poetic about that, in the next chapter, chapter 3, the serpent is crafty and says, he said to the woman, did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, that we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither of you shall touch it, lest you die. But the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die, for God knows what will happen, so on and so forth. So they say it several times that way, and they say it that way, as far as I can tell, on purpose. God tells the first lie ever told. If you eat from this tree, you will die on that very same day. And the serpent, his only role in the Bible, it never says he's Satan or anything. All he does is tell the truth and say, you will not die if you eat it. You'll just know the difference between good and evil. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
So that's where I got that from. It's not my weird interpretation. That's what the book says.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so right before you answer, if you're gonna have a different interpretation, then I'm curious in virtue of what, like, you have access to God's intention so that you have the correct interpretation. But where's Forrest wrong in what Forrest just said?
Well, even if you believe that literally, then the story of human beings would have ended a long time ago.
I agree that it makes no sense, but that is actually what it says.
Yeah, you have to understand that we don't think this actually happened. They're just like a book says a thing stuff, right?
Yeah, this isn't the theist experience, man. So what do you believe? Do you believe that the events described in the book of Genesis actually literally took place as described?
I really lean towards Joseph Campbell's interpretation, but I'm very an open-minded individual. I like to consider a lot of things. Like, I even like Terence McKenna's interpretation of
Terence McKenna, the guy who like did a bunch of mushrooms and thought that there were these little elf things that talked to him. You talking about that guy? That's literally the shit that I came out of. Was people like Terence McKenna.
So you like the mythological analysis of this stuff? Is that what I'm reading? I'm not being snarky. I'm actually asking. You like this No, please go.
It's not that I like it. I actually study comparative religion as a hobby. And
yeah, me too.
A lot of the etymology and scriptural studies that I've done, I've seen all the early theologians, Cappadocian fathers, the early church fathers. They've always interpreted scripture by analogy and metaphor. They've never had this very fundamentalist, literal interpretation that a lot of people represent today of your average theist. That gets kind of rubbed off on your average atheist too. You know, that a lot of the arguments they attack are these real fundamentalist.
Yeah, but how do you? I just want to kind of cut through this. There's two things I want to know. One thing is, you came in here and the call screen says that Forrest has a ridiculous interpretation. So what I would like is a retraction, right from that, if that's not the case, and you can just concede that what you called in about was wrong. I don't see how that's a ridiculous interpretation. That sounds like a pretty straightforward what the thing says, right? So that's one thing. Well, let's circle back to that.
Let's get the retraction.
Yeah,
let's get the retraction. I can remember
I can remember what I want to say.
You're on the record. Go ahead. Let's hear your retract.
Or show them that.
Wait, no. Let's get him to retract. Go ahead and retract.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to remember that you're reading an English translated,
No, Jimmy. Are you going to retract your statement? Yes or no? Say, Johnny, I retract my statement about Forrest's interpretation. Say those words. Go ahead.
No, I'm not, because I think he's going off. There's so many interpretations.
He doesn't
So
believe this
just to
stuff.
be clear, me reading what the actual words actually say is me misinterpreting it. That's what you're accusing me of?
No, well, that's what I'm trying to say, that you're not reading the actual word with what it actually says. If you really want to know what...
You want me to do it again? I can do it again if you want me to do it again, because I read it word for word, verbatim, what it says in here.
Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Do you agree that Forrest read it word for word? Do you agree with that? That proposition true?
He read that particular...
Is that proposition true? Yes or no? He read that from the book. Okay, great.
He read that...
Awesome. Great. So now, presumably, you know God's intentions, right? Or something like that we don't know. How do we know? Well, first off, what is the...
I know that... I'm saying that I know that it was originally written in Aramaic, Greek, and it's translated.
Wait, what?
Wait, so just really quickly.
Genesis was?
Well, I'm just curious. Have you read the original Aramaic and or Greek, and it says something different?
Yes, there's other Bibles that will say something completely...
Bible is written in Hebrew.
Yeah. I'm asking, are you reading it in Aramaic and Greek in the original words that it was originally written in?
That's my concern, yes. That has been my concern, to dissect it to its original, scriptural form. So, yes.
The Old Testament's in Hebrew, right? Jesus spoke Aramaic, and the disciples spoke Aramaic, and the Bible was written in... I can't say Koine Greek.
Koine?
Koine Greek. Yeah, I can never say that. So I think you're confused there entirely, unless I'm just not hearing you say.
You're making me get away from my research on pubic angles, and now I'm having to look up what the fucking Bible is.
You're pulling them from the pubic angles. All right, look.
I had Google Scholar. I was on like the third or fourth paper on there.
Regardless, so this is where I'm seeing it, right? He gave his interpretation. Now, presumably you think his is false because it doesn't line up with what God's actual intention for us to interpret that verse to be. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we have a process of knowing what a speaker means when they say something or they give an utterance. So like, for example, if I hang out with Johnny and, his brother or his mom or somebody said something to me and I said, wow, that was kind of like, it was really mean. And Johnny's like, no, you don't understand. That's actually... You didn't interpret that correctly because what my mom actually meant, it means she likes you, right? If you had more background information about the speaker, it would help construct the hypothesis for you on what she likely meant, right? And the more you get to know that person, the more you get background information, and everybody has access to this because of your friends, your family. You can rule in what's most likely what they're meaning versus something that they probably don't. So the background information helps aid at what the speaker means by the utterance. Now, when you have God giving some utterance or something in the text, we don't have any background information of that entity, right? So what are we going to use in order to say, well, I can raise the probability that God meant this in the same way that I can raise the probability once I get to know Johnny's mother a little bit better and go, oh, okay, yeah, I see over time. If there isn't that and we go, well, how do we know the background information about God, like the attributes he has? Well, we have to use this, the thing that caused the problem in the first place. And so now when you go, well, God's attributes are this way, and so that's what helps explain the interpretation, I can just go, hold on, you're taking out of the book. How do we know that God didn't want us to interpret his attributes a different way? And you can make this move at any point. So you're gonna have to have special access to God's intentional states in order to know that you have the correct interpretation. And you're going up against somebody who just read it verbatim. Are you saying that God is the author of confusion and doesn't want people to understand the literal meanings of the words?
No, I'm saying that there's, if you perform a very thorough examination of exegesis and if you engage in the endeavor of hermeneutics, that you'll find that yes, there's...
That's what I'm objecting to. I'm objecting to this exegesis and hermeneutics in the sense that you don't have access to God's intentions. In order for you to interpret what God intended the same way that I can interpret what Johnny's mom meant requires me to have background information about that person. You don't have any for that for God. And worse than that, God is a being who's omnipotent, right? He can do anything. So any observation that you could ever make about anything is consistent with such a being. It's not going to help rule anything out at all. It's just like solving the problem from the get-go. if we know a method at which helps us interpret things by what the speaker meant, it helps to know the speaker and information about them. It doesn't help us to have to use the same thing that caused the problem in the first place for us to have the interpretive principle for us to understand what God meant. It's circular. I mean, bring out the freaking power strip again, you know?
Yeah.
I also just want to throw out there, there's a website called, I went back to Google Scholar and I couldn't find any significant morphological differences between women with or without case in terms of pubic angles. Doesn't mean they're not out there, but like my tertiary lit review over the past 5 minutes, couldn't find shit. So do with that what you will. Also, there's this really cool website here called BibleHub.com that actually shows the Bible in Hebrew, line by line, even sometimes word by word, showing this word means this. And so here it's got literally each piece. Here's the Hebrew for but of the tree, and then the next line, of the knowledge, there's the Hebrew, of good, there's the Hebrew, and evil, there's the Hebrew, not, there's the Hebrew, you shall eat, there's the Hebrew, from, goes on and on down the line. And here's the last part, you shall eat of it, surely you shall die. And here's the line for you shall die. In Hebrew, that is the actual direct translation. And in case you're curious, you can actually click on it.
The word, yeah.
You can click on the word, and it shows you all the other the times that is iterated throughout the Bible in the same words in Hebrew. You shall die. It says it here. It says it here's later in Genesis. You shall surely die. It says in Exodus, in the Nile, you will die. And it says here in Judges, do not fear, you shall not die. And as the same exact Hebrew.
First Samuel, you shall surely die. Jonathan,
yes, there's that one.
Samuel,
so like, here's every single time throughout the entire Bible, anybody ever says you shall die with the exact same words in Hebrew as in Genesis chapter 2:17, where it says, if you eat from this tree, you shall die. So why, if in the original Hebrew, they wrote it with the exact same words as all these other things that mean the exact same thing, why do you think it's a mistranslation now in this particular Bible that I happen to be reading out of today? What is that?
No, I never said it was a mistranslation.
Misinterpretation is what you accused me of.
You have a misinterpretation.
Okay, so my question then is, how am I misinterpreting you shall die when it means the same thing here as every other time that it's used throughout the entire Bible? In the original Hebrew, no less.
Okay, like many atheists, he seemed to interpret it very literally. And I mentioned this show.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Do you mean that the Bible should not be taken literally? Because there's a lot of Christians who would have a big problem with that.
No, yeah, and I have a big issue with that too.
So those aren't the good Christians. Those aren't the Christians that know the real Bible. You know the real Bible, though.
Well, of course, they don't look into it deeply enough. They don't study hermeneutics.
They haven't studied enough. That's right. So that means that the preachers and the people who go through seminary and their whatever ministry school and they learn the Bible and they take a literal interpretation to it, they haven't studied it the same way that you have studied.
So Jimmy, they didn't get to your conclusion, therefore they're mistaken.
Right.
Right?
Because you bring in like hermeneutics and stuff, and it's not going to do anything in terms of there's an open question. If the goal is that God intended for this verse to be interpreted X and not X, right? It has to be this way. Intended for that to be interpreted. What you have to do is have a position such that you could justify corresponds to God's intention, because anybody can make the move that at any verse that's supposed to be metaphorical, that's supposed to be literal, that's allegoric, and if you just say that, the project of doing hermeneutics or an exegesis or anything like that, it still leaves this open question: are we tracking with what the speaker meant? Are we interpreting the divine utterance properly? And I don't think that that's a task that anybody can do with the text, mainly because in order for you to get the attributes of God in the first place, there's this question: should these attributes that I'm reading about God in the text be taken literally or metaphorically? Which helps us nowhere with the adjudication of whether or not it's taken literally or metaphorically. You just have to beg the question in order to get the result you want.
Yeah.
So when you criticize his view versus another person's view, or you employ your own view, all of those are on a par from having access to what the God intended, even if we assume God existed. And this is what I think is the final death nail in the coffin for religions based on text, is the idea that you cannot justify a divine utterance because you don't have access to the divine speaker. You just have a book.
Right. So if you wanted to know what Virginia Woolf meant when she wrote in Mrs. Dalloway, she had the perpetual sense as she watched the taxi cabs of being far out to sea and alone. She always had the feeling that it was very, very dangerous to live even one day. You could probably access the personal journals of Virginia Woolf, right? A living historical person who probably wrote about her writing, right? But you don't have access to that with the Bible. So all you're really doing is literary interpretation of something hyper ancient, right? Almost pre-literate, not quite. And then you're saying that those people who don't take your pet interpretations of the mythology are mistaken. They're too literal.
What sucks is that, like, I'm not even a theologian in any way, but I have friends who actually professionally study theology, and they would never do what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole point of the field, is looking at the historical context and arguing what it actually means. And, like, bro, if reading the words isn't a good enough interpretation for you, I don't know what to do. I don't know what you want from me.
Yeah, Jimmy, thanks so much for calling. We're going to let you go. All right, so you know what? I'm going to tell you something. We've got some merchandise. I want to tell you about it if I could find the note.
Got some right here.
Yeah.
It's a little bit above.
It's a little bit above?
Right? No.
Where is the merchandise?
You
Oh,
can
here it
buy
is. Visit
this
our store.
and put it on your body.
Visit our store. Limited edition t-shirt. That's not one of them that he's holding up. Our atheists are good without God. Visit tiny.cc/merch ACA to get them now. Forrest, go ahead. Show them what they could look like if they bought merchandise.
This is what you look like if you buy the wrong size.
It's a ladies small, but pretty soon it's going to be a ladies medium.
You could be...
There we go.
This could be you.
This could be you.
This could be you. You could be this cool.
Yeah. Hey,
rock out the AXP merch, y'all. Look at that.
I think,
yeah. Hey, Kenneth.
There's only one way to get that off.
Kenneth, this could be you, but you're playing.
You could be right now, but you're playing.
Yeah, this could be you, Kenneth. All right, so we want to send you. Oh my God!
Listen here, brother. Thank you so much for watching the Atheist Experience.
Yeah. Hey, crew. Let's get the crew cam up and running here so we can look at the beautiful people over in the production booth.
There they are. Hey!
Look at the back of their heads. Isn't that nice?
I see Tim's back.
That one there is my favorite.
Yeah. It's cool being here with them and all the folks out in the audience, the folks that we've been having so much fun with so far. All right. Let's see. What else we got? Oh, have you said to yourself, JMike, I'm going to ask you this personally. Have you said to yourself, quote, I really love the content the ACA creates, but I wish there was a way I could get it all the time?
I did. When I delivered pizzas, I consumed ACA content, and I've asked that question when I was...
Well, then we've got you covered.
Oh, snap.
We have 2 24-hour live streams. AXP TV delivers a constant stream of shows, clips, and specials from over 26 seasons of the Atheist Experience, and now Heathen TV provides you with clips from Talk Heathen. Watch or simply listen to your favorite hosts. Discover some hosts you've never heard of. Visit tiny.cc/AXPTV and tiny.cc/Heathen TV to join in the fun. And then a question of the week. Remember, what's the best comeback for the fool says in his heart that there is no God? Enter your answer in the comment section below the video, and your comment may be read on next week's episode. Don't do it in the live chat. I've said it before. I'll say it again. People still do it.
We won't see it.
Put it in the live chat. And please try to make the hosts laugh because we really enjoy that.
Our hearts are so full of sadness because we don't know the love of God. So we need you to help us make us laugh, please.
I'm talking through my heart. The fool says it. I'm the fool saying it in my heart. Well, shoot. Shall we do this again?
I think so. I can't wait.
Yeah.
We'll do it again. We'll immediately start the show again.
That's
we'll do it right now.
You want to do the last super chat?
Oh, yeah. Super chat.
Yeah.
We still have a job to do.
I got to keep these guys in line here. All right, we got 2 more left. Hengfa Shai, I think is how you say it. I don't know. Hengfa Shai. Hopefully I didn't totally butcher your name. $20. Saturn is at opposition. Beautiful. To think that our societies are still informed by the beliefs of people who thought that a flat Earth was under a dome in which Yahweh fixed planets. Scientific method is our best way to know. 2 cents. Chiming in the 2 cents. Thank you, Hengfa. Appreciate
you for that.
it.
Yeah.
And then I got one from my parents.
Hey.
Which is cool. They said huge JMike fans. Love Mom and Dad. Thank you.
Oh,
I really hope.
That's so
I hope that
sweet.
they are. It'd be weird if my parents were fans of me. You know?
Yeah, 2 thumbs down.
It'd be weird if that
Just like, by
wasn't
the
your
way,
parents.
JMike kind of suck. Yeah, you gotta step
Yeah.
it up. No, thank you. I love you, Mom, Dad. Thank you so much. I have the
We
greatest family. I don't know if people like know kind of my history with that. My parents are religious, but they're like the coolest. I had the greatest opportunity I could ever have to think for myself. And so when I hear people calling in, if you've seen one of my many rants about people I know that no longer have the community that they had and they've had to go, it sits with me mainly because I've never had to experience that. And so, and that's mainly because I had really good parents that didn't put me in such a situation that forced that upon me. I got to think for myself. I got to make the decisions that I did, and I love them so much. So
I don't know their honorifics, but Fleet Admiral and Countess JMike, we appreciate you for letting us borrow your son. Thank you so much.
That's right. Speaking of the people that we appreciate and we love, some of the folks out in the audience who were on the Bat Cruise yesterday, some of them are here. Some of them may have had Malort with me, but they're still standing. Well,
I'm
they're sitting
so
right
sorry
now.
for what you've been.
oh my, yeah. So you got me with that last night. It was the worst thing I've ever tasted.
The
in my
prank
life.
continues.
Truly
Yeah, I got
horrific.
ribbed.
Hey, thank you again. See you all next time on the Atheist Experience. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.